I just want to walk through the answers for the review activity. If you'd rather hear my voice explain the answers to you. If not, you can just simply check your answers. So looking at number one, during the algebra quiz, Jenna looked up and caught an unexpected wink from her favorite teacher, Mr. Heiser, and wondered if she was expected to wink back. And the problem is going to be B, because once again, we have a definition of a favorite as being there's only one favorite. This is in a positive, which should take commas. So there should be commas around Mr. Heiser because I'm renaming what her favorite teacher is. And she has only one favorite teacher by definition, so there should be commas. Number two, after some serious prayer, Jake decided that he would take a year off from going to college and that he would travel to Pamplona to train for the running of the bulls. So there's no error in this one. A couple things I wanted to see if you can follow is I didn't want to put a comma near the word that. This is just a noun clause. So decided what up on a tree. And then there's another one sitting over here. So the reason that C doesn't take any commas, it's not a compound sentence, and it's just simply two direct objects, two really big, complex direct objects, so they're both on trees. The other thing that's not an error is this B choice. If I see a gerund, I'm just going to double check my gerunds and make sure they're not dangling. In this case, the subject of the sentence is Jake, and Jake is the one who's going to college or taking a year off from going to college, and so therefore he still works with that gerund. So that's why there's no error. On number three, supposedly back in the 90s, immediately that apostrophe kind of stands out to me because it's back in the 1990s, and so therefore that becomes the error. Other things I threw at you was comma but making a compound sentence, and this is not a decade like the 1940s. This is just the years that I'm in my 40s. Number four, driving around in a circle for a period of time for a period of 3 to 4 hours is considered. So once again, I'm going to be hyper-focused on commas in this unit because I know there's only really a couple commas that we've learned so far, a compound sentence comma, and a positive, and also a direct quote. And so this is just a big old gerund phrase as a subject going into a verb. There's no reason for that comma. So immediately I'm drawn to that as the error. Number five, Jack's least favorite part of Mr. Shockey's class was to listen to the other whiny classmates arguing for stupid points legitimately missed on a test. This is the toughest one I have on this review activity. The problem is going to be A. Let's walk through why it's not the other ones, because mostly everyone chooses B. So if you chose B, you're normal. The reason that B is not an error is because I have to show possession of the word arguing, which is a gerund. Remember, whenever I show possession of a gerund, it has to be something which is possessive. So I could say like their, T-H-E-I-R, they're arguing, not them arguing. And so if I would take away that apostrophe, that's like saying the word them arguing. And it's not them arguing, but it's their. It has to be something that's possessive. So there has to be an apostrophe. So the classmates are plural, and then I make it possessive. So that's why that's correct. The problem is going to be A, and the reason why A is a blatant problem is because my gerunds and my infinitives have to agree with the subjects. And so arguing doesn't work with the subject of part. The part isn't arguing. And that's why I gave it the word classmates as a new subject of that gerund. But listened is the infinitive, and listen doesn't work with this subject either because the part isn't listening. If I were to fix this, I'd say Jack's least favorite part of Mr. Shockey's class was for Jack to listen, and then on from there. I have to give this infinitive its own subject in order for it to be correct. Number six, it seems that teachers don't consider their students' lives with a new push to place all class notes online for students to view at home as part of their homework. In this case, the problem is that apostrophe. And the fact that I want to put the apostrophe after the S because there's more than one student, and therefore that word lives kind of gave me that clue that there's students' lives. There's more than one student, so therefore there's lives, and the apostrophe goes after the S. On page 2, we have at the end of the 70s musical. Well, that means 1970s musical, Grease. Sandy changes how she looks physically and how she behaves morally in order to get her man. Seriously, it is the worst moral message of a musical ever. Anyway, besides that, by putting a comma after musical, that makes this a positive, which it is, but that also means that Grease is the only 70s musical, and it's not. There are a lot of musicals from the 1970s. Grease is just one of them, and so therefore I don't want to put a comma around Grease. And so I noticed that the B, C, and D all took the commas away from Greece, but they also left one comma after Greece. And there's a reason for that. We're just not there yet. So just trust the fact that I don't want to separate the comma between musical and Greece. But this other comma, it doesn't look like I have an option not to have it. The other thing that's different is B and D both have this comma after physically, and it's not a compound sentence. It's just simply two big direct objects. Just like number 2 on the front page, you have two really large direct objects up on trees. Sandy changes 1, how she looks physically, and 2, how she behaves morally. If you diagram it, you'd be able to say, oh yeah, I get that. Number 8, upon our graduating, a little subject for that gerund, upon our graduating from advanced grammar, Mr. Marsh said, and here's your direct quote, which means I have to have a comma getting into this direct quote. So therefore, it's got to be either C or D. And you'll notice then there's in a positive. You now have a new goal in life. I like C because it sounds like you have a new goal. It sounds very specific. So therefore, a comma, like I have only one brother. So therefore, I have a comma. Whenever I mention my brother, I have only one wife. So therefore, I'd say my wife, comma, Danielle. So if you have more than one new goal, then you could have chosen D. But I assume you have only one new goal. It seems very specific. That's why I chose C. Beau's mind was like jelly after sitting through that assembly on the differences between gluten-free and glutton-free foods. It's just funny to me. Anyway, if you don't know what gluttony is, then it's not funny. But if you know what gluttony is, it's a hilarious sentence. Anyway, once again, anytime I'm dealing with this unit, I've got to pay attention to what my subject is and if my gerunds and my infinitives work with that subject. So right now, the subject is the word mind. And his mind was like jelly, but his mind isn't sitting through that assembly. See how that works? His mind is not sitting through the assembly. So if I look at some of the choices, the B choice just simply moved it. It just simply says after sitting through that assembly, but nothing's really changed. That can't be the right answer by just simply moving something. C says Beau couldn't stop eating jelly after sitting through that assembly. That doesn't make any sense at all. It completely changes the meaning of the sentence. It's great, though. I mean, you just imagine Beau just going to town on some jelly, but that's not really the answer. I want you to look at D. Beau's mind was like jelly after his sitting. Oh, see, that's just a red flag for you to say that's not red flag. That means that's bad. It's a green light. How about that? It's a green light to say that's the right answer because I threw in that subject of that gerund. It's his sitting. Number 10, to live without a cell phone and to disconnect from social media for a week would be a challenge for most of us in this age of technology dependence. This is a really long subject. It's actually a split subject, to live as well as to disconnect. Those are both subjects, and I never separate my subject from my verb. Automatically, that comma's got to go away. So it can't be A, it can't be C, it can't be D with this comma and because it's not a compound sentence. It's got to be B. And I wanted to show you that you can have a really long sentence without any commas at all. Number 11, whoever's responsible for giving President Taft his sponge bath before church certainly missed the smudge of chocolate under his chin and his crusty elbows. Once again, another sentence which takes no commas, and that's why I wanted to use this one as an example. The subject of the sentence is whoever's responsible for giving President Taft his sponge bath before church. This whole thing is the subject of the verb missed, so there's no comma, even though it's a really long subject. And giving's my gerund, but it works because my subject is whoever is responsible. Whoever's the one who's also giving the sponge bath. It all works perfectly. And lastly, number 12. Lastly, number 12. Both Monica and her boyfriend's week looked incredibly busy, so they said goodbye to each other on Monday morning and planned to meet up again on Friday night. Well, Monica has a week, and her boyfriend has a week. So individually, they each have a week, so that would make weeks. So it's got to be either B or D. And the whole point of the sentence is she has a week and he has a week, and therefore they're going to meet up later. So therefore, if they each have their own individual weeks, we would choose D. It's Monica's and her boyfriend's weeks. So therefore, D with that apostrophe rule. All right. As you venture on, I'm going to walk you through eventually how to take on number 13 and 14 and then do some diagrams on the bottom with some videos. But I'll pause my video for now and start a new one.